Before Sharon and I get talking and discussing this project, I'll quickly play some folk music on my sarod, uh, folk music from the state of Bengal, which my father very regularly performs at concerts. Sarod, it's a beautiful uh, instrument made out of teak wood, and we are the main features that we are playing with our fingernails, not with the fingertips. But some folk music and more on that later. If I play with the fingertips, the sound is flat like this. So I'm playing with the edge of my nails, so the sound changes to a more vocal-like texture. And the plectrum is made of coconut shell. Over to you, Sharon. Welcome. So nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you.
So, what's very interesting, I use my fingernails as well, but on my right hand. My left hand has none. You can always tell a classical guitarist long nails right,
Yeah,
short left. So, we have frets, which you guys don't have.
yeah.
And every pitch is therefore very defined. We can change the colors by where we play on the instrument. For example, if I wanted a really bright sound, if I wanted something more dolce, I would play it up here or with a different kind. We can also do vibrato or that way, and bent notes, which you guys often do.
My father says this a lot that Sharon's guitar sings, which is because, you create this magic with your instrument, and it's just such an honor that we are performing finally in New York City with this project. And let's talk about how it all began.
So I received a message from Maestro Amjad Ali Khan. Now it must be about 16 years ago.
I think so, yes.
And it was by email. And he said, I'd really like to collaborate with you. And we met. I got to hear him and his family perform. Of course, I fell in love with their music instantly. And I said, I can do anything you want as long as you write it down. I didn't know at the time that he didn't read music, but somehow that came to fruition as time went on. So almost every year we would meet, our friendship grew. he'd say, we're working on this. After 10 years, I figured this is never going to happen, but that's okay. I've been introduced to this wonderful family, beautiful music. That's good enough for me. And then suddenly one day, this was in November, December of 2018, all of these ragas appeared in my inbox. And I listened because it was a demo tape, and it was gorgeous. And I wrote to Ayaan and his father, and I said, this is just beautiful music. And he said, I'm glad you like it because we booked a tour to do with you in India in 2 months' time. And I said, well, that's so exciting, but couldn't I have a little more time to learn all of this and do it when I'm free in my schedule? And they said, no, the halls were available, Mumbai, Delhi, Calcutta, let's just go for it. So by this time, 10 years had elapsed, and it was just such an extraordinary opportunity that I moved mountains, I changed my schedule, I dove in, arrived in India 2 months later, we rehearsed. We had a few days to rehearse, and the rest is history. And after our tour, we all said, well, we have to make a recording. So 2 months later, in April of 2019, the Khans were visiting New York. They had a half a day free. We went into a studio, made a recording that became Strings for Peace. It was released the following year, of course, just in time for the pandemic. And we were supposed to do a tour throughout North America. Everything, like everything else in life, was delayed. But we had the recording. It came out in 2020. And we started performing again when the world opened up. And one of the exciting projects that happened, I had the guitar department at the Aspen Music Festival, which is really the biggest classical music festival with students and orchestras in North America. And I brought them as my guests in 2022. A month later, after the concert, Ayaan said to me, I just listened to that archival recording. It sounds like an album. I said, really? So I listened. He was right. We got permission. It was released as Live in Aspen, and that was in 2024. So we've been performing together all over North America. This is exciting for us to come to New York for the first time and play together.
It's just been so awesome to have met you, and like you rightly said, I think prior to us sitting and playing together, we just knew each other for so many years. And I think the whole magic happened when my father was having a residency at Jacobs School of Music, and one of the guitar students there, I got talking to him, Kyle Paul, a very brilliant artist, and I said, listen, there's something just lying there. And I can't find a guitarist to write the notes for the guitar and sarod. He said I could do it. I said, really? And he did. And it took time, but I'm glad it all happened. And then you loved what you heard, because that was news to me, because we've collaborated with a lot of violinists and cellists, but I did not know that Western classical music is written a little differently for the guitar and for the acoustic guitar. So it was really a learning experience, and I think it's just every concert has been so memorable. I think we played all over the United States, but somehow New York, though that's Sharon's home, but New York got left out. But I think there's a time for everything. I'm so glad we are presenting this with World Music Institute. It's such a legendary organization, and I go back almost 28 years with them. I was 17 when I first played for
Wow.
World Institute at Carnegie Hall. They were celebrating India's 50 years. So following that, so many memorable concerts at Town Hall and various other venues. And we're so looking forward to bringing this project. And I mean, it's ironic it's called Strings for Peace, and I think peace is more relevant than ever today in the times we live in. So I just hope that, through this project, the deeper meaning where that music is beyond borders, and we're all human beings, and we all have the same DNA and the same feelings, the same emotions. So I hope we're able to convey that in a deeper sense, in a larger sense, and I hope music conveys that message. I mean, that's literally what this album is all about, I think.
And certainly to be able to collaborate from different genres, I coming from the classical world and you from the world music, different instruments. I see one question there about how does it work? The sarod has no frets and the guitar does. we come from different religions, different backgrounds, but music is our harmony. And when the Khans titled our first album as Strings for Peace, I thought this really resonates for me and for the whole idea of bringing people together through music, which of course is a common concept, but when you think about what that really means, it's very powerful. I would just like to address that question. When you have an instrument that has no frets, of course, any pitch is possible between and collaborating from one end of the instrument to the other. And the idea of blending the metal strings that they have on the sarod with the nylon classical strings that we have on the treble. We have wound metal for the basses and flesh and fingernails versus a pick. It creates a third instrument, something that is truly unique and special. And one of the things that I enjoy doing, playing with this music with these extraordinary artists, is the ability to imitate the idea of improvisation with embellishment. And when you think about the Romani from hundreds of years ago who left India, across the ocean, many settled in different parts of the world, including in Spain, and that became part of what eventually was the flamenco movement in Andalusia, where you have the Spanish spirit expressed through flamenco guitar. And even if you just compare dance gestures of North Indian classical music with flamenco, it's remarkable the similarities between the physical and the audio. And of course, we have Amit Kavthekar on tabla providing extraordinary rhythm for us in both our recordings and our concerts. But the fusion of these different cultures and its lineage from India to Spain. When I played in India for the first time on our tour, I opened with a Spanish work of Albéniz, and it was a piece I played many, many times. But for some extraordinary reason, having been immersed in the culture for those few days, I saw it with new eyes, new ears, and that sense of connectivity with North Indian classical music, which I had never imagined before with Spanish music. It was so there, and it informed and changed the way I play Spanish music.
No, I mean, I think you convey it the right way, and it's what's interesting for us that usually, because Indian classical music doesn't have a written score, but interestingly, even though we do follow a score for this project, there are times when things happen which is
Yes.
not planned. That's the thing. You have to always bear with us because we are not reading. So sometimes I would like to call them mistakes, but I would like to call them magical moments. I mean, that happens, and eventually it all falls in place. And that's happened so many times when we are playing our concertos, or with when it's a more kind of a set score. But then, that's the fun of the whole exercise, that you make every concert your own. I mean, the concert in Aspen, or the concert in Carmore, the concert at Fort Lauderdale. I mean, we played even in Florida, I remember that. And such a memorable concert in San Francisco last year. And the NPR recording, I think every time we sat together, I think the music took over.
That's
And
right.
it makes a very big difference when we know each other. There's a comfort zone. End of the day, you want to kind of just make a beautiful bouquet of flowers together. I mean, that is the concept. If you go on stage with this very individualistic attitude when you are playing together and collaborating, then that's not fun. Then don't do it. But the point is, when you go together, you sail together, and you make a beautiful bouquet of flowers together. I think that makes such a big difference. And that's
And no night is the same. Every night we play, it's completely different. And that's why we were able to do Strings for Peace live in Aspen.
yeah.
And even though some of the titled repertoire may be similar, the actual music that flows from it is different, because you're improvising. All four of you are improvising, and I'm coming along for the ride there. So that spontaneity is very much in the moment, which makes live performance so special.
Well, earlier, I think when you were growing up, you were into rockets and you wanted to build rockets and all of that. I think now the musical fireworks are coming out of your hands.
Oh, thank you, Ayaan. That's a very sweet metaphor.
Yeah, no, no, indeed. And but you're also teaching in Juliet now. I mean, you have a, I mean, I mean, you have a lot of students who are learning the fine craft of your musical legacy. So what are your views on the younger lot of students who are learning and how are they imbibing technique and music?
Well, for me, it was very exciting because Juilliard asked me to create their very first ever guitar department. So that was in 1989, and it's been thriving ever since. I've had students from over 25 different countries, and every year we hold auditions. I only take very, very few, at most 4 or 5 in any given year. And it's both undergraduate and graduate level up through doctorate and artist diploma
Right.
from bachelor's. So the people who come are very highly motivated. They have a passion for what they do, which is, of course, what we all share.
Yeah.
And they have an innovative, creative sense of wanting to make something that no one else has done before. And that's what I find exciting. So I learn from them as well. I'm learning all the time new repertoire. I even had a duo of 2 brothers from Australia,
I think I
Ziggy
read
and
that.
Miles, who were the first guitar duo ever to win in the 64-year history of young concert artists just a couple of years ago. And they have been touring with their amazing work and constantly creating new arrangements and collaborating with composers. The fact that I've worked with so many composers inspires my students to want to do the same and to expand the horizon of the instrument, just as our collaboration Ayaan is doing something no one has done before.
No, it's interesting to see the times we are in now with AI joining the gang of musicians now, and so much happening. So these are very interesting times we are in, and but again, I mean, I think what I think motivates us as a family and all our projects has always leaned towards conveying that message of peace and harmony. In fact, our recent work, which won the Grammy, called Meditations by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I mean, it's all about how we're all the same. I mean, togetherness and positive thoughts. Inner inner actions and all those things put together. It's the first time we did a spoken words album, so it was very interesting to how to kind of amalgamate someone speaking along with music. So that was interesting, and but again, like I said earlier, that the main message as artists is that we just want to spread love and peace through the music. But and interestingly, sarod and acoustic guitar, I'm sure somewhere or the other the concerts did happen, or the combination happened. But I think one was able to do it over a period of time and develop the music, which has been really inspiring for Strings for Peace. And I'm waiting for you to play those new pieces that we are talking about. I mean, so I think there's another recording on the cards very soon with some beautiful pieces, and hope we can do the trilogy of Strings for Peace with that recording, God willing, very soon.
And speaking of which, in the chat box, somebody question has asked, how did the title Strings for Peace come about? When we first played in India, our group was called Peace Tribe. So peace
Yeah,
seems to
yeah.
be a theme for the Khans for decades. And they came up with the idea of
It's
Strings for
always so
Peace.
needed. It's so needed all the time. I mean, I wish we didn't have to talk about it, but it's in every part of the world. You see so much, and these days because of the net, we just get so much extra information which we otherwise wouldn't have had. So it's very disheartening sometimes to see things happening at all levels. So I just hope we have a better world for the kids. I have twins who are 13. They just performed with us in London. And so, they're into Ronaldo, into Messi. But the good thing is they love Strings for Peace. They know all the pieces and the composition. They're listening. They're constantly listening. And that really interests me because when we were growing up, that one cassette recording changed our lives, or that one recording of, say, John Williams or Julian Dream, who I met, changed someone, a guitarist's life. But now there's just so much content out there. That's why overall, I think a youngster today is just getting access to so much research, which is so readily available. So I think you do need kind of a mentor more than ever today to just tell a student what to, or a progeny, what to not do. I mean, that's what I'm picking up and observing at the moment.
And somebody has asked also in the questions, is the classical guitar structured in a different way from other guitars? And one of the things that, of course, is different from an electric guitar is that ours is hollow bodied and we have no electronics on a true classical instrument that isn't wired up. So there are no electronics on this. And when I want to amplify, I use a microphone. And the nylon strings, of course, versus the steel strings, the fingers and the flesh versus the pick is what makes a quality of sound different. For example, I can stay in one place and change the brightness or dolce sweetness of the sound and amplify that more by left hand use as well. By the bridge will be, and we have all kinds of special effects we can do, which sounds like what the sarod players do when they don't use their nails on the left hand.
Since we are on the instrument, I'll just say one or two other things that, we have 19 strings altogether, and there are 11 sympathetic strings. And we have 4 drone strings, and we play on the 4 main strings of this instrument. So yeah, so it's, these instruments, are made in India. In maximum of them are made in Kolkata, the folk music which I played from Bengal. So in the city of Kolkata, and the instrument maker who used to make our instruments passed, but now he has a lot of progenies who continue making very good instruments, and there are a lot of instruments even being sold online with, and the works. So that's why I think sarod today, my brother and I, my father of course has had his vision for the instrument, and he started doing collaborations relatively later, I think, in life. Of course, he was open to it. It just didn't happen, I think. He did play with Charlie Bird years ago when Charlie Bird visited Kolkata. Again, so much happened in Bengal, actually, where Sharon also performed in Kolkata. And then we released that album, actually, quite recently, called the Studio Sessions in Kolkata. But that was all the 70s. And then, more recently, his concerto and all of that. For my brother and me, we are now trying to take sarod to very interesting spaces. We recently performed with the Young Blood, the pop sensation at Lollapalooza. And we also, what Bryce mentioned, we did 2 tracks with the Gorillas. And that again was very deeply involved in spirituality, because both Jamie and Damon, the Gorillas, they both lost their fathers, and India was like a spiritual calling for both of them. And they wanted to record a lot of authentic Indian classical instruments and all of that. So there was a whole story to it, and a lot of depth to that project. So it's interesting that one is able to, amalgamate sarod in these kind of projects, and Strings for Peace being one of them as well. And I think New York just has such an amazing appetite for new music or new collaborations, new projects. And the listeners there are just, there's something special about New York.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, when they're choosing wood for a classical guitar, the soundboard, the part that you see as the audience, is so important in terms of the graining of the wood, the thickness, the quality, the fan bracing underneath. You have an animal skin, and it's a goat, correct?
It's goat skin, yes.
And how do they pick the right goats?
Well, I think, you know, Calcutta again is a very big spot for skin products and those kind of things. And all the instruments, be it the tabla, the sarod, all. So I think it's literally I mean, I think the maker would kind of know the thickness or the quality of skin that is required. I mean, I
Can it
don't
be
think
a male or a female goat? Does that matter? Or an age range?
I don't think so. I think the first time anyone's asked me that.
Well, see, this is what I stay up
We
awake
don't
at night thinking about. I'd like to know the answer to
we
that.
don't talk about that part of the instrument. We just stick more to the right hand side of the instrument. So yeah, so it's Calcutta. I don't think. I mean, I don't think the gender really matters there, but I think it's the quality of the skin that they use. And you see what also happens. I mean, spiritually speaking, Kolkata also is a place, and Assam, where a lot of sacrifices happen as well as a form of, it's a culture, even in Kashmir that happens. So, there's a connect. So I guess it's just one of those things. It's like the cycle of life kind of a situation. And the wood, it's Burmese. It's usually Burmese teak wood. It's high end, So sometimes, it turns out to be quite expensive to buy a sarod. But then you can get different kinds of wood as well, depending on what the budget is. You can get something for someone who just wants to start off. But sarod is, it's more. I mean, every instrument is difficult, but sarod is more, I think, challenging for a beginner because there are no signs. So the moment they go to do re mi fa sol la ti, it can take forever sometimes. And it's recommended to start early because it's a good idea to grow up with the instrument to understand it better. I mean, I there have been very rare cases of uh, people picking up the sarod late in life and becoming performing artists. I think most of the people who play this instrument, at least the performing artists, all learned at an early stage of their life. So I think that at some level is important.
And I play a vegetarian instrument, and I'm proud to say that. It's a vegan guitar. There are no dead animals on mine.
Yeah,
Back in the day, the treble strings and the basses were wound over catgut.
right.
So, and sometimes I suppose it was goat gut. But nowadays it's all nylon and other kinds of properties, but none from animals. So that's another interesting difference.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
I
I'm vegetarian myself as well,
yeah,
so
of
that
course,
it
yeah.
fits that I would play this instrument probably and not a sarod.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, and strings are all guitar strings, a very thin gauge of guitar strings. So different gauges for each and every string. But sometimes we have to also file our nails because we are playing from the edge of the nail. So sometimes people laugh or they find it funny. But it's not a manicure session. It's a necessity. So we don't travel without the nail file. You know that.
Someone has asked here if the experience has made me want to work with other instruments and musical traditions that I haven't worked with before. And certainly, I feel very fortunate to have been able to collaborate with people like Mark O'Connor, who is one of the great bluegrass artists in the world on violins, and he wrote a work for us together that I did the world premiere with him of recording on Journey to the New World. That was the one where Joan Baez joined us as well. I've always admired Baez's folk singing, and when we were able to collaborate, it evolved from a piece that was written for me by a British composer called the Joan Baez Suite. She gave it her blessing, and then when she heard it, offered to join me on the album in a couple of songs. I've worked with a lot of jazz musicians. My first collaboration was actually with the Brazilian legend, who it's amazing to have worked with people like Laurindo Almeida, who brought bossa nova to this country, and Larry Coryell. We had a trio called Guitar Jam. I have a trio now called Guitar Passions with Stanley Jordan, the great tapping artist, and Romero Lubambo.
You have your concerto as well, the guitar concerto, right?
What was that?
You do have a concerto as well, which you perform with orchestra as well, right?
Many concerti, but they are more in the classical vein. So people who are known in that world, Christopher Rouse, a concerto inspired by the Sagrada Familia and great architect Antoni Gaudi in Spain. It's called Concert de Gaudi. John Quariano wrote a work inspired by the 13th century French troubadours, and it's called Troubadour. You can actually go online, just go to my website, SharonIsbin.com, and see information that will take you to a wonderful documentary that was issued a few years ago that has won various awards, including the ASCAP Television Broadcast Award. It's called Sharon Isbin Troubadour, and you can get a real feeling in that 1 hour of all these different kinds of collaborations that had taken place up until that time. It's streaming on PBS, also on Amazon, or you can get the hard copy on DVD and Blu-ray. So Troubadour is a project that is close to my heart, and one that reflects kind of a global experience of bringing my instrument to different genres with amazing people across the world. We didn't know each other yet then, Ayaan, or you would have been in there.
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to many more, but I really hope that all the listeners here come for the concert on the 30th of April at Symphony Space. And I think the tickets are available on the Symphony Space website and also on the World Music Institute website.
And the concert, of course, is the 30th of April at 8 p.m. There's a question for you. Someone saw your performance on Saturday Night Live and wanted to know how that, with the gorilla, how did that collaboration come about in that performance?
So I was, the track they did on Saturday Night Live, I wasn't in that one. But I'll talk about the collaboration. So it was just they reached out to us, and it was all it was a big secret and everything. So they just said, a big rock group is here. Can you and your brother come and perform, record with them? So I said, I need details. I mean, what do you mean? I can't just land up. I mean, I need to know who it is. They said, no, we promise you it's a very big group and you won't be disappointed. And they are very keen that, to include your brother and you in this project. And
did you know it was going to be Saturday Night Live, since they wouldn't tell you who the performers were?
It was part of their promotions. They even did the Graham Norton show and all those things. But my brother and I were not on that show. They did some other track on those shows. We recorded. They recorded back in 2024, actually. They were in Mumbai, and then when I reached Mumbai, then I said, "Oh, it's Damon and Jamie, it's the Gorillas," they just, gave us that creative freedom to, play and just kind of musically go crazy, and it was wonderful. There's one track we did called "The Mountain," which is the title track, and we did another track called "Shadowy Light," which had this legendary Bollywood singer Asha Bhosle in it. And ironically, she talks about how she's trying to sail through a river and everything. And she recently passed away, just last week. And it was just an honor to, be alongside with her in her final musical tribute. And she was someone who, was extremely amazing and open-minded. And she was one of the few Bollywood singers who, collaborated with the Kronos Quartet, with Boy George, and all of that. So anyway, that's how it all happened. But it's a beautiful album, amazing artists are in it, and a beautiful vinyl and a lot of artwork, and the entire legacy of Gorillaz, I think, is very well adapted to the album.
So there's another question here, which is asking me how I was led to the guitar, and am I from a musical family? So I'm really an accidental guitarist. Our family moved to Italy when I was 9 years old. My father, being a scientist, was invited to be a consultant there in Varese, which is near Milan. And my brother, who was 7 years older, said he wanted to have guitar lessons. So my parents got excited because they learned that a student of Segovia who was concertizing in Italy, the Aldo Minella, was actually commuting every week to our town in Varese from Milano, and brought my brother for the interview. And he realized right away this was just all mixed up and wrong, because his fantasy was to be the next Elvis Presley. He didn't want anything to do with classical. So by then my parents were excited. They had discovered this guy, and my mother loved Segovia's music. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I volunteer out of family duty. And I also knew that if I did, I wouldn't have to continue my piano lessons. So that's how I started.
You put it out there to the universe and it manifested. And look, you have the two, you have a few of the many Grammys right there at the back. So I would also like to say that, along with my father, Sharon, my brother, and me, there's our dear brother Amit Kavthekar, who's playing tabla, who has performed with us in most of the Strings for Peace performances. And he's a disciple of the legendary Ustad Allah Rakha and our very dear Ustad Zakir Hussain, who unfortunately passed a few years ago. So many memorable concerts with him. So we're looking forward to getting together once again on stage. And I think Sharon will decide what her opening piece will be nearer to the day of the concert. But then we're just looking forward to getting back on stage with such an iconic artist, and it's always a pleasure.
And we were excited to do Tiny Desk after our San Francisco concert earlier last year. And so that's something that you can all watch. It's just a few minutes, but it's fun. But there's another question for you, Ayaan. It says, it must be interesting to be teaching now. Do you bring the experience of learning from your father as you are teaching?
Well, it's different. I mean, because I'm there are a lot of students of my father who are teaching, and my brother's taken on a few disciples. I kind of overlook a lot of the students, but then I've been spending a lot of time teaching my twins. So, and the silver lining of the lockdown was it happened because I was sitting at home, and that's how, I mean, earlier they were just strumming. But what I realized is that, you can teach to a point, but beyond that, the sense of responsibility has to come from within the student. They need to know what they need to work on and where they want to go. So that is very important. I never force anyone to sit down, practice. What are you doing? And my father also never did that. In fact, even his motto was when we were growing up that, after the concert we'd go to him and say that, oh, what do we work on? He used to say that, listen to the recording and figure it out. He said that you know what you want to do, where you want to go. So you're smart enough to know what you need to work on. So he always left the ball in our court.
Were you ever rebellious and you didn't want to practice?
I mean, I was into it. My brother, I think, was a little more rebellious. That happens, doesn't it? When you have a father who's like such a known name and you got all that extra attention all the time. Sometimes you want to just walk away from it all. Like when I was 8, people at concerts would say, oh, we're waiting for you to play. We're waiting. There were people who heard my grandfather, my father. So sometimes, I mean, we didn't know better, and before we knew it, we were playing. But the point is that, who you are should be conveyed through your craft. I mean, I see a lot of artists who talk about, legacy, who talk about it's been in our family for years and all of that. But what matters is what you do when you're up there on stage. So your work has to speak for itself and has to communicate who you are,
Do your twins find it exciting performing with you on stage, and are they flowering in their expression?
They enjoy the process, but for them it's fun. It's also getting away from school. It's a combination of many things, you see. But I told them, because now they are 13, I said, listen, let's have a chat about what's going on, because it's a long journey, and and a musician is a student till the last day you walk this planet. So I'll quickly play that piece from Strings to Peace, which we usually don't play on stage. So I'll just quickly play it now. It's called Love Avalanche. It's a beautiful piece played by Sharon and me. So I'll just play a few lines.
It's such a haunting melody, very modal in its effect. And I remember the first time I heard that in the demo tape you sent, I just got
And I
goosebumps, as
remember
I
a
did
part,
with
I
Pilu.
remember the part in the recording we both decided to go very soft at one
Yes,
point, and then again,
right.
and that made all the difference, you
And
know.
that one is on our Strings for Peace album. It's not on Live in Aspen, which has different repertoire as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yes, I think we've covered so much. Sharon, I think we haven't done so much catching up in a long time, but this has really made it up. Are there any more questions that you see?
Nothing yet. Everybody's getting shy.
Oh, I think we've covered a lot, I think. So, Gabby,
You
any
have indeed covered a lot. It was beautiful. I mean, to hear your two different stories of how y'all came to where you're at, and now this beautiful collaboration. The only other thing that I could think of, since we have so many people from different locations, is where else can they hear you perform live, the Strings for Peace?
Well, I think this is the only New York appearance, but we are working on some shows later this fall. So stay tuned, and we'll come back. We'll come up with some of the dates. But looking forward to some more shows later this fall and also spring next year, God willing.
And you can sign up on my website to my annual newsletter, which will keep you informed. And of course, the tour page is listed both there and at sarod.com for the cons. And I think the unexpected is what thrills us often the most, that collaborations happen, music comes to us that we didn't conceive beforehand, and that's what I find exciting, and that's it has enabled me to explore so many different kinds of genres with other people. And it certainly keeps me on my toes. The most recent project, the most recent album that I released was just last year, less than a year ago, and it's called Romantico. And it is all world premieres of music that is Latin dance inspired, including
Wow.
a new concerto called the Miami Concerto, which is based on some beautiful dances. We have music from Colombia, a Cuban rumba, the tango in the second movement, the guaranco is the Cuban rumba in the first movement, tango second movement, and the third movement, bembe, is inspired by Afro-Cuban elements mixed with certain European flavors. So that album, Romantico, features, among other works that I do for guitar, Romantico, and it's by all music composed by Karen Lafrac, an American composer who spends half of her time in Miami and was so inspired by that extraordinary mixing of cultures there.